closure also for people who lost their relatives, have not found them. This is a way also of ensuring closure for them to know that probably their people died and they cannot be traced, but also that the government is acknowledging accountability for those losses. So we are not just doing compensation. It is a holistic process that will also make recommendations on those who should go through the justice process. But it's also important to note that they cannot go to the court process because of lack of evidence, lack of witnesses, and they do not meet the threshold for the courts to compensate. That ideally is what reparations is all about. But you'll notice that there are some cases that are already in court. People have gone to court and the courts have awarded. For example, I think the issue of the sexual violence, there are some cases that the courts have already made awards for those ones. So ideally, when a matter is already in court, then it is outside the mandate of the commission, because there's a competent body, the judiciary, that has made a decision, so it has gone through that process, and as a commission, we cannot come in for cases that are that have been determined by the court. We will not interfere with that. But part of our recommendations is to recommend for prosecution for cases that ideally you can identify a perpetrator and we can identify who violated human rights. I think the other question was on gaps in the assemblies. So you'll note that Article 37 of the Constitution provides for the right to assemble. But it's one of the articles of the Constitution that has not been operationalized through an act of parliament. It is just in the Constitution. And remember, sometimes the Constitution cannot self-implement. You need legislation to implement specific articles of the Constitution. There's been various attempts to have a law that deals with demonstrations. And you've seen there's been hue and cry on some of the provisions of those specific laws. And I think the last two have been withdrawn. We've had proposals to amend the Public Order Management Act to include issues of demonstrations. Again, the public have raised issues with those specific laws. So what the Commission is doing, and we've started conversations. We've had meetings with the Law Society of Kenya, with the police, with IPOA, with civil society organizations, with Parliament. And we have agreed on the parameters that we need to work on to ensure that we operationalize Article 37 of the Constitution. So that is where we are. It is not just the Commission working on this particular legislation, but it's a concerted effort by various stakeholders, because this is an issue that requires public ownership, citizenry ownership, for us to agree that as a country, this is what we want to see in terms of Article 37 being implemented. I think lastly was on the issue of the list and whether we have figures. As I mentioned, right now we cannot say we have figures. We have information from the Commission on what we have collected for 2017, 2024, and 2025. We have called in the government agencies to bring us their lists. Once we consolidate this, we will have a list from government agencies, which does not need verification because it's already been verified. But the list that we have called out for from civil society and the citizenry is what we will now verify, we will consolidate and verify. So at the end of this process, we will have one full list that will capture information that was already there, but also information that we will now be collecting so that we submit it as one document. I hope that's clear.
Okay, so we're going to have a photo as the Commission receives the report. Okay, just one. Okay, any other question? Just two. Take two more. Okay, those two. You and then her, and then we are done with the questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam. Maybe how soon do you expect this bill to be operational? Because we know in Kenya, we do have each and every time auditors, and again, maybe Gen Z, maybe grouping or planning, maybe to have something of that time. So how soon do you expect this to be placed? And maybe lastly, how are you prepared, or have you encountered any cases in reference to this of a family who does not or may decline or may reject this compensation, maybe how we do in such a case, what the family may say, you can't maybe exchange the whatever, if you are prepared or you encountered, how we do in such a case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last one?
My name is Safiti from Citizen. I have two questions. First is just to follow up on one of my colleagues who asked if you can share with us numbers so far. Jan was mentioned it's a long list, so how long is long? If you have details on how far, probably what we are looking at in terms of the cases we have received as of now. And the question I wanted to ask touches on what action are you planning to take against those who will file false claims? We spoke about it, but very briefly, I just want to explain on that. And have you set parameters probably that would make a claim meet the threshold of compensation so that it's clearer for members of the public who want to file those claims?
Okay. I think I'll go first. I would say this, that as a committee, remember one of the 10-point agenda issues is leadership and integrity, and then the other is war on corruption. We would like to request Kenyans that as you are keen on collective war on corruption and leadership and integrity, cases of fraudulent claims for compensation actually should not arise, because the issue of leadership and integrity is not a question of government agencies alone or duty bearers, even citizens. Now, as a committee has been going around the country, every corner of this country, every county of the 47, the issue of compensation is crucial. And so I agree with the chair to the commission when she says that they may not just yet have the numbers, and that's why they are compiling the lists from various government agencies, including from the police. Remember, too, that those that will be victims of compensation are not just citizens. They are police officers who may have been injured while discharging their duties. So those too will be victims of compensation who may have suffered injuries, death, whatsoever. So I think that's one thing that we want to make clear as we guard or as we appeal to citizens not to use this opportunity to lodge fraudulent claims at the Commission.
Thank you. I think I'll just pick up from there and to confirm that for now we can't give you a number, because we do not want to give you a number. Then tomorrow when the number is bloated, it will be said that the Commission has increased the numbers. We want to verify the information so that when we give out the number, it is of victims who have been verified through the various mechanisms. One of the things we've also put in place is an appeals process. For those who will bring their information and we feel they do not meet the threshold, they have an opportunity to appeal to that particular team. And if the appeals team verify their claims, then they'll be included in the list. So for now, we cannot give you a certain number. We will only have the number once the process is clear. On the issue of false claims, the law is very clear. If you, first of all, utter a false document, you forge documents, you will be prosecuted. But if you also give false information, you can be prosecuted and under the penal code. So what we are doing is the police is on alert for anyone who will be suspected of giving false information. We will hand them over to the police to take them through the court process. And as has been mentioned, that is why we have experts who will help us to verify the documentation. The doctors will help us to verify medical reports, and the police will help us to verify reports that were made to the police. So that will help us to weed out the false claims. Then there was a question about the bill taking long. Remember, we have said that there are two processes that we are doing. There's the bill or the framework, reparations framework, that is very comprehensive, that will have to go through Parliament for adoption. So we will submit that. But we are also submitting a guide on compensation. So the guide on compensation will address the current need to fast track the compensation bit of it. But the legal process of developing a framework will be ongoing. But within the 60 days period that we've been given, we will submit both the documents. So on the side of the Commission, we will have finalized our mandate and hand it over to Parliament or to the institution that is required then to move the process forward. Then just remember that the issue of reparations is a voluntary process. You cannot force people to take compensation if they do not want. So that is why we are calling out for those who want to be in the list. And they will also sign a consent form for them to be included in the list for compensation. So for those who do not want, maybe they are comfortable with an apology, that is still reparations. And we are hoping that as Kenyans, we can look at this thing holistically and not just as a compensation issue. So those are the issues that, that were asked, and I think I've answered all of them.
So one follow-up, just one.
So I'm wondering about the place of judiciary in this whole process. Have you about if your case is closed to the team, and then you make a decision on a particular matter, and then it's again challenging in court? How do you go about that?
I think it's everyone's right to go to whichever platform or whichever institution they want justice from. For us, remember, we are not dispensing justice in that sense of hearing your case and determining that someone is guilty, someone needs to pay you. We are looking at this as a process of righting a wrong that happened. Even the threshold is totally different. For the ones who have already gone to court, the court has a system of hearing evidence and making awards. If they receive awards from the courts, I think it can be referred that they already received compensation from this particular process, so that there's no duplication of someone receiving an award through the court process or through the through this particular process. For the court process, ideally the aim is to find someone guilty of having violated someone's rights. But if we had included this person in this list of compensation, our duty is to inform the court that this person has already been compensated. So the court may just find the perpetrator guilty, but on the bit of compensation, our role is to inform the court that this has already been done. I hope that's...
If somebody make a decision on someone saying, I want an amount of money, and they say, did you got enough for the wrong that was done on my child or something?
It's what we are doing. We are using proper guidelines on compensation. So someone cannot come and say this is not enough, because it's not an amount it cannot bring back the person. It cannot take you back to where you are. It's just a way of saying pole. So it will never be enough. It will never be enough. It's just an amount to, make it easier for you as you go through the process of dealing with a loss. And that's how we are taking it. And that's the whole essence of reparations, to repair what was wrong. And remember, when you're repairing something, you don't go back to the original position. It's just a way of making things slightly easier or better for you.
Okay, thank you. The Commissioner can now receive the report.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you to your team for the support to the Commission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of our press conference. We'll allow the team to continue their meeting.
To appeal who have been verified through the various, because we do not want to give you a number. Then tomorrow when the number is bloated, it will be said that the Commission has increased the numbers. We want to verify the information so that when we give out the number, it is of victims who have been verified through the various mechanisms, with the police, with IPOA, with civil society organizations. One of our recommendations is to of ensuring closure for them to know that probably their people died and they cannot be traced, but also that the
kwa mashirika yasiyokuwa ya kiserikali kwamba waweze kuleta ripoti hizo kwa kamati ili kwamba waweze kujumuishwa kwa ile orodha ndefu ambayo kamati iko nayo.
Okay, thank you. I'll respond in English. The first question is what will the Commission do, especially for families that have not been found? And I'm going to answer it jointly with the issues around accountability and justice. If you remember that we said that as a Commission, we are not just looking at reparations as compensation. We are looking at reparations holistically. And one of the issues, components of reparations is also justice and accountability. And if you look at the Gazette notice, it also mentioned that the Commission should also make recommendations for those cases that should go through prosecutions. So if we receive any information on perpetrators who ideally should go through the justice process, we will make that recommendation. But one of the recommendations we will make is also on these ones whose relatives have never been found. For the executive to find a way to put in place or to commission an inquest or an inquiry for people who are yet to be found today, so that there's a report that comes from the relevant government agencies, so that there's closure also for people who lost their relatives, have not found them. This is a way also of ensuring closure for them to know that probably their people died and they cannot be traced, but also that the government is acknowledging accountability for those losses. So we are not just doing compensation. It is a holistic process that will also make recommendations on those who should go through the justice process. But it's also important to note that they cannot go to the court process because of lack of evidence, lack of witnesses, and they do not meet the threshold for the courts to compensate. That ideally is what reparations is all about. But you'll notice that there are some cases that are already in court. People have gone to court and the courts have awarded. For example, I think the issue of the sexual violence, there are some cases that the courts have already made awards for those ones. So ideally, when a matter is already in court, then it is outside the mandate of the Commission, because there's a competent body, the judiciary, that has made a decision, so it has gone through that process, and as a Commission, we cannot come in for cases that have been determined by the court. We will not interfere with that. But part of our recommendations is to recommend for prosecution for cases that ideally you can identify a perpetrator and we can identify who violated human rights. I think the other question was on gaps in the assemblies. So you'll note that Article 37 of the Constitution provides for the right to assemble. But it's one of the articles of the Constitution that has not been operationalized through an act of Parliament. It is just in the Constitution. And remember, sometimes the Constitution cannot self-implement. You need legislation to implement specific articles of the Constitution.
Very well. Can I have a comment from the auditor on the documents which have been tabled before us?
Deputy Chair, yes, indeed, we have received the documents, verified, and we are ready to proceed. Thank you.
Our clerk.
Chair, we confirm the Office of the Clerk received the documents within the timelines and we are ready to proceed.
Expenses, irregular procurement, and those two issues are the ones that are still outstanding. On climate change fund, the Auditor General gave a qualified opinion. One issue is still outstanding on inaccurate accumulated surplus and net assets. On Basary and scholarship fund, we have one issue, and modified opinion was also issued. That's a clean opinion. But under lawfulness, there was the issue of the mandate the county government in terms of the scholarship or the bursary. That is still outstanding. On the staff housing fund, the report was qualified, and one issue was is still outstanding on defaulted loan, which has been recurring every other year. The only issue that is cross-cutting on two funds is about failure to enact regulations and the act for executive staff housing fund and the bursary and scholarship fund. That's the only issue that is cross-cutting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Before I give my directions, can I ask Senator Mbugwe to put himself on record?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Senator George Mbugwe, member of this committee. Governor and your team, karibu.
So, honorable members, I think you've heard the report from the auditor. You have the auditor's brief to us. There were two reports which read a modified opinion. And modified opinion means that there were no fundamental issues in the report. That is the report of Lamu County Emergency Fund and Lamu County Basary and Scholarship Fund. So as per our tradition, we don't dwell too much time on such reports, but we may seek clarification on some issues which maybe we need clarification. So largely we'll focus on climate change fund and the county executive staff housing fund. So maybe we can start for a few clarification on the Basary fund. Governor, maybe you can clarify to us the status of Basary as far as the matter that was in court is concerned.
Thank you, Chair. On matters Basary, we have reached agreement with the national government and also the controller of budget. We have actually signed agreements between the 47 county governments and the Ministry of Education that would allow us to give bursaries. As we speak, we have already made a requisition to the control of budget, and I think this matter addressed.
Very well. Senator Tobiko, you have any query on that?
Yes, Chair. I was looking at that Basary report. Though unmodified, there seems to be an issue with developing enabling regulations. I see it in as an unresolved matter, prior year matter. I see it, Chair, again, you know, it's been mentioned in the report severally. Under the lawfulness and effectiveness, it's still coming up. Failure to develop bursary and scholarship regulations. So if maybe the auditor can highlight on that one, and let's hear the response from the governor and his team.
Auditor, I think you had indicated that in your summary, but you can repeat it. The issue of regulations.
So, Chair, do I read it the way it is?
Well, because it is cross-cutting,
yes,
I think we can deal with it once, because it is affecting even emergency fund as well. Even, I think even the housing fund.
yes.
So you can explain to the members that situation affecting the three funds, and then members, governor will respond to that.
Thank you, Chair. For the bursary, the act is in place, but they don't have an enabling regulation. Ideally, an act is followed by the regulation that gives the operational of that act, which has not yet been done. And the reason as to why we still have it is that the regulations, according to the responses that they have been developed, they are waiting confirmation by the county assembly. So the issue is still outstanding as we await the adoption or approval by the county assembly. On mortgage, we have the regulations, but we don't have they don't have an act, and the understanding is that they are supposed to have an act in line with what is in the national government. But I think they developed regulations, and then they've been using the national the act of the national government. So they are saying that issue has also not been resolved. The other one was on.
Tell us also how is the law frame? Because sometimes we have experienced this problem before, but when you go to the county legislation, you realize that it is not very mandatory to have regulation. You can see they have said they may have regulations, so it is not stated in mandatory terms. How is this stated? Is it stated in mandatory terms that there shall be regulation?
Not really, Mr. Chairman, but this issue we had consulted also the legal experts in our office, and the feeling was that even though it is not indicated that it's mandatory, the need for an act to go with the regulations was necessary. That's why we put it there for the deliberation by the committee and decision.
Okay. Let me hear from the governor first before members you may comment.
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask the CEC Finance to respond to that.
I think we had discussed this issue with the Office of the Auditor General, and the agreement was that since we have the PFM Act, which stipulates on how funds should be regulated, if you have the regulations, I think, and we had agreed. Thank you.
Okay, let me hear from our legal officer, particularly on the issue that the CEC has raised.
Thank you,
PFM
Chair.
regulations.
Thank you, Chair. Section 205 of the PFM provides that the power to make regulations is a power vested upon the Cabinet Secretary. He's the only one with the power to make regulations under PFM. Therefore, counties, and it's a practice I think this committee has observed severally, do not have powers to make regulations under the PFM. So the best practice would be for the county to come up with its own county legislation, and then if they want to make regulations, they can be made under that county legislation, but they cannot make regulations under PFM because that power is reserved for the Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury.
Open members.
Chair, mine is just seeking clarification from the governor, from the Basary fund. Do they have board in place now? Because just before you go to that, if we can exhaust on the issue of regulations.
Let's exhaust regulations, and then I'll come back to you for the board.
Kindly.
Yeah. So
yes, Chair. So from what the legal has said, it implies then the position taken by the CCM might not be, the actual correct position. it means you should still, you should do your own legislation and your own regulations, because you cannot then bank on PFM. So I wanted to know from the governor, when were these regulations, if there are any, submitted to the county assembly, so that in terms of timelines, we can know from legal, then if they are in on the right track in terms of statutory laws.
Through the chair, actually, if you look at Appendix 1 of the report, we have the regulations there. So the regulations are actually ready and have been forwarded to the county assembly.
Timelines.
I think last week.
They were submitted last week.
Chair, the position still remains. I can see from the regulations that they are being formulated under the PFM, which is erroneous.
Which one are you looking at? Basary?
Yes, I'm looking at the Lamu County, they are named the Lamu County Basary and Scholarship Fund Regulations.
Yeah.
They are draft. It's a draft.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe the county attorney should note that the issue of PFM regulations. Maybe Governor, you can confirm to us, do you have a specific legislation on the Basary?
We have an...
You have an act on Basary. Then the regulation should be made pursuant to that act.
Well guided, Chair.
Yeah. The regulation should be pursuant to the parent act, not PFM. Yes, Auditor?
Maybe, Chair, the one that doesn't have an act specific for that, as we also add to the Basary, is the staff housing fund. That relies entirely on the PFM Act without an act at the county government level.
Which one is that?
The staff.
Okay.
The executive staff housing fund.
Okay.
That one only has the regulations, which does not have an act, and that's what the legal expert is saying, that you can't use the PFM of the national government.
Yes,
Chair, I think that is not correct.
Yes.
Because where there is a lacuna and there is national law, we are allowed to rely on the national law.
Yeah, you know, Governor is a lawyer, and you know, on many occasions, that argument has been challenged by legal people from the counties. I think you need to look at it. We need to give you more time to look at it deeply. The issue of counties, do they have the powers to generate regulation pursuant to the PFM? It is still being resisted by counties. So maybe you can say something.
Chair, it is the PFM itself that gives the Cabinet Secretary the sole power to make regulations under this Act. The point the Governor was making was on application, which is correct, that counties can apply national laws. But the making of regulations is a specific power which should be expressly provided. And under the PFM, the power is expressly provided to the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. There is no specific power provided to counties to make regulations under that. and also serving at the moment in the delegated committee. It's also actually an issue that we have been trying to educate the counties upon, on regulation making power and how exactly even the assemblies should look to ensure that the executive is applying the correct powers when they are making regulations. Thank you.
What about if they amended that PFM, that part, and to say that the cabinet secretary or the counties may formulate regulations from the act? Would that solve that problem?
I think that would be conflating a lot of issues, because counties could also subsume other things and attempt to make regulations on that. So it's something that the county assembly should be in a position to control.
Okay, Governor.
Chair, I'm in agreement with the Learned Council. And in fact, we shall withdraw this and make it that these are regulations under our own act and not the PFM Act.
Senator Lamu.
Thank you very much, Chair. Now my question, Chair, is now because an error was committed and the law was not followed, as the Senator for Lamu and on behalf of the people of Lamu, I wanted to ask, who is this person that will bear personal responsibility for that error? Yes, to follow the law.
Auditor, you can tell us the basis of this query. I'm sure you had a reason why you came up with this query, but it's appearing under other matter, so you can explain.
Mr. Chairman, the reason it is appearing under other matter is because it was in the previous year. These are issues that are in our prior year matters that have not yet been resolved. And we keep them alive until a solution is found. And a solution will be found when they are in line with the law according to what we have been advised. So at that point, when the county comes up with an act and corresponding regulations, then the issue will disappear. Because in the previous year, where it appeared first, it was a breach of the law. It appeared under the lawfulness section, where we said the management was in breach of the law for the fact that they didn't have the relevant act. Then, to keep it alive, we put it under other matters in the 2024-25 financial year, until that time that the county government will come up with a solution to that. And now that we've been told a solution is going to be found, maybe in the subsequent audit we might have a different scenario.
COB, I want us to move on.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to also bring it out that remember, the counties will always requisition for funds towards these established funds. And as of now, like the fund that is in discussion, of course, there are funds that the controller has approved towards that fund. So it may be important for the committee to come up with one resolution that guides even the Office of the Controller of Budget, because at the point where we are developing guidelines, when it comes to approval of funds, let it be clear that for the controller to approve funds towards these established funds, there has to be an act and regulation so that the funds are approved uniformly. Because it appears we have been doing either using regulation or the act. So a resolution from this committee will guide us properly so that we are able to apply across to all the counties.
Let me ask you a question. Supposing the act is so comprehensive, dealing with all the issues that needs to be dealt with in the fund, would it still be mandatory to have regulations?
Chair, I may not be the right person to answer that because I'm not a lawyer. but I may seek consultation with the office. But I felt it is important to bring it up so that we also guided properly as an office.
Competent legal officer, say something.
Chair, especially for some of these not very wide matters, it is possible for the county to come up with a county act that is comprehensive. So in such a case, there wouldn't be need for regulations. The need for regulations is only there where, for example, the assembly has decided not to set out things such as forms and whatnot and procedures, and decides to defer that to regulations. So if an act is comprehensive, then there is no need for regulations.
So, Chair, then who is this person who will determine whether that act is comprehensive? Because for them, they may not be the ones to determine whether it is addressing all the issues. Who will this person who will say the Lamu Basary Fund Act is comprehensive?
That would be basically the work of the implementing agency, which is the county government, because they are the ones implementing. So for instance, the general power to make regulations is always there in case of anything. But sometimes when you are looking at the County Act, you can find, for example, it did not provide, for example, for the procedure for approving bursaries, for the distribution, for instance, and such other matters. So once these lacunas have been identified by the implementing agency, then that's the time when the CEC, who has now been given that power under the county legislation, now goes ahead to make regulations. But there are instances where the County Act will have covered all those bases, thereby not necessitating regulations. So it's just something that has to be determined on a case-by-case basis.
Governor?
Yes, Chair. We believed that our act was quite exhaustive, and this is why it had been in operation since 2016, and we didn't have regulations. We just developed regulations because the Office of the Auditor General insisted that we need to have regulations.
So maybe we can propose that you give us a copy of that act. I think there are two acts. There is that one and the other one for climate change. So if you can give us a copy of that act, and then our legal officer will look at it and we will advise the committee. If you have it, you can table it. If you don't have, you can send it to the clerk.
We have the climate.
Yeah. 2019. Very well. You can just table it.
And I'm tabling it.
Okay. Clerk, you can get a copy. So, but I think the responsibility, the county attorney should pursue this matter.
This is the person.
Very well. Any other question, honorable members? Let me come to you now. Siama.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the chairman's summary on bursary and scholarship fund, issue number 2 that states that the board was not, the board for the fund was not complete. So I was seeking clarification if the board is now in place.
Very well, Governor.
Chair, yes. We did submit names to the county assembly and they did not approve them. They did not approve 3 of them.
So what is your next move if the county assembly
We are resubmitting other names.
Senator Hamida, put yourself on record.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem. My name is Senator Hamida Kibar, member of this committee.
Now that you have restarted the Basary, I think it will be important for the County Assembly to speed up the composition of the board. Yeah, I think it will be very much in order. Any other issue, honorable members? Yeah, even on the other fund, which is unmodified. So I think we can move to the other two funds. The County Executive Staff Housing Fund and the Lamu County Climate Change Fund. We can start with the Climate Change Fund, where we had identified one query. That is inaccurate accumulated surplus and net assets balance. Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. The inaccurate accumulated surplus and net assets balance, the statement of financial position reflects accumulated surplus and net assets balance of 73,576,512 shillings, while the statement of changes in net assets reflects a corresponding accumulated surplus and net assets balance of 84,458,909 shillings, resulting to an explained variance of 10,882,427. In the circumstances, the accuracy, completeness of accumulated surplus and net assets balance of 73,576,512 shillings could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, your response?
Thank you, Chair. Let me ask the person in charge, Mr. Gaduri, to explain that variance.
Mr. Gaduri?
We would like to respond as follows. The management notes the variance between the accumulated surplus and net assets balance as reported in the statement of financial position and the statement of change in net assets. The difference arose from an amount that was erroneously recognized in the previous financial period. During the current financial year, management reviewed the assets and established that they are owned and controlled by the county executive. As a result, the assets are no longer recognized in the financial statements of the current period, financial year 2024-2025. The adjustment was effected through a journal entry to align the accumulated surplus and asset balances as per Appendix 1 and an extract of the financial statement.
Auditor, your comments on the response?
Thank you, Chair. The challenge we are facing here is that the journal entries they have highlighted here are not supported by the particular documents, because this is a balance that is affecting accumulated surplus and property, plant and equipment. We needed to see now what was the effect on those balances through journal entries and vouchers for that matter. Journal, and that's what is not even addressed here. So the issue still remains. The extract of the financial statement is an indication that when we raised the issue, they went ahead and just removed the figure and changed it. You know, in accounts, any change must be accompanied by the effects on the accounts on both sides, the property, plant and equipment, and also the accumulated surplus, which is not demonstrated in the documents in Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. The officer, this is very technical issue you need to respond through the government.
We have our asset register for property, plant and equipment, and it shows the figure of the 10 million.
I think what the auditor is saying is from a layman understanding of bookkeeping. He's saying that you needed to raise journal entries to recognize the change, because that change in asset level would affect other aspects of the financial statement. So do you have any journal entries that you made to support that change?
We only have this one for the final one.
Auditor, please guide us on this, because...
Mr. Chairman, what you are saying is that the balance in the property, plant and equipment, as they have accepted, was wrongly overstated by 10 million, for example. So for you to reduce it, you need to do a journal entry reducing that, and then you go to the other side and do the same for the accumulated fund, the accumulated surplus. The question is, the document you are fighting here is an Excel document where you go and change the figure because it has been laced by the auditor. But you know there are ledgers, there are trial balances involved. We need to see these changes translated into the particular ledgers and the particular trial balance. Because the change is not superficial. It should go deep into the accounts where the particular supporting ledgers are also adjusted accordingly. And that can only be done by journal vouchers. And that's what we are saying.
So, yeah, officer, you need to... Okay, let me allow the
Chairman, just
liaison officer from Orange.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Patrick Muruk. I'm the liaison officer. I sit in CPAC, but today I'm standing for Mark Gashanja, who is a substantive liaison officer in this committee. Chairman, please allow me to say that why we insist on the journal voucher is because a journal voucher will contain a narration. Anybody now reading the journal voucher will be able to understand what entries are being made and why they are being made. So in the absence of the journal chairman, you cannot understand why those entries are being made. That's why the auditor is insisting you must have a journal that is showing you are debiting this account and you are crediting this account, and for this reason. The amount of 10 million, chairman, is also a big amount. In the narration, it's expected that it will have an analysis of the individual entries that are supporting that journal. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, maybe what you needed to have told the members, because you know the members, some of them may be struggling with these technical words you are using. Was there any loss of funds, or it just a mere bookkeeping error?
Mr. Chairman, there was no loss of funds, but the financial statements were misstated. And that's why we are talking of inaccuracy, such that now, if we agree that that adjustment has not been done, then it means that the financial statements as presented are not accurate.
Yeah. So, you said your name is?
Oh, yes, CPA Gaduri. Yes.
You are a CPA?
Yes, I'm a CPA.
I think you should be understanding what they are talking about.
Yes, I'm understanding him. It's only that I don't have those other journals here, but we've already done them and they're in the office. Maybe I'll provide them to the auditor after this meeting.
Okay, any other comments before? Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Please allow me to demonstrate how those entries can result in a loss. If, for example, you take the value of assets, and then you are not able to determine those values properly, either because you have made some misstatements. Sometimes you look at values of assets when you are taking insurance, for example, when you are doing valuation. And if, for example, you have to take insurance on a value of an asset that is not properly determined, you may end up paying a higher amount, for example, that is going to result into a loss of fund for the entity. That's one way where if you're not able to determine the asset value properly, Chairman, you can result into loss of funds. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments before I give direction? Now, you have a comment. I think this is a simple issue. If you have made the adjustments on the journal, auditor, you will sit down with him to confirm all that, and where there is need to maybe do it better, you make suggestion, and then that change should be reflected in the subsequent financial statements. That is for 2025, 2026. Then you keep an eye on that.
We get it, yeah.
That is as far as climate change fund is concerned. So we can proceed to the county executive staff housing fund. But maybe, auditor, you can tell us, do they have a mortgage fund as well? I saw clerk had listed mortgage fund.
No, they don't have a mortgage fund.
Okay.
Maybe the assembly is one that has a mortgage fund.
Okay. So we can look at this. I think we do this query on long outstanding and the defaulted loan, which is closely related to the other one, long outstanding and defaulted loan repayment. I don't know, maybe you need to read the two concurrently, so that as we debate, we look at it concurrently.
Thank you, Chair.
And then we will finalize with the underutilized county funds.
Okay. Long outstanding and defaulted loans. The statement of financial position reflects current portion of long-term receivable balance of 1,959,334 shillings and long-term receivables from exchange transactions balance of 4,160,000 as disclosed in notes 19 and 29 to the financial statements. As previously reported, review of the loan documents provided for audit revealed that a loan of 23,400,000 was disbursed to an officer on 9th July 2019 at an interest rate of 3% and repayment period of 36 months. However, at the time of the audit, the loan was not fully repaid and a balance of 6,119,334 was outstanding as indicated below. The principal amount, outstanding amount is 4,160,000. The accumulated interest is 1,959,334. The title deed used as collateral in case of default was not deposited with the Housing Loans Management Committee as at the time of audit. Further, the borrower was no longer an employee of the county government of Lamu and had not given prior authority in writing for pension dues and any other employee the debt in case the member loses his job before repaying the loan. Also, the Fund Administrative Committee did not pass a resolution of converting the loan to commercial terms. In the circumstances, the recoverability, accuracy, and completeness of the long-term and current receivables from exchange transactions balance of 6,119,334 could not be confirmed. The issue exactly was the same for the previous year. So we are repeating.
Is this the issue that we had referred to ESCC?
Yes, it is.
Maybe without going into trouble, ESCC, you should tell us what have you done on this matter. It was an issue affecting former governor, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The information I have from the office is that we have a file on that matter, and it is at a stage we call evidence analysis just before forwarding to the ODPP. Thank you, Chair.
Because we spent so much time discussing this matter, and then the committee said, let ESCC deal with it. Maybe, Governor, you can just make a comment on that.
Chair, we have been corresponding with the SEC. Whatever information they wanted from us, we have provided. And I think, anyway, since he's a former governor, and they will want clearance from the SEC to run for that office, then they should mark that he should not be cleared until he clears his dues with the Lamu County government.
And there are efforts made by the county. I can see letters here these letters were being written to him or members. If you check the file, there is demonstrated effort by the county. But I welcome any comment on that. But this matter had been extensively dealt with, and we recommended the EACC to take it up.
Chair,
come out.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, as a senator for Lamu, I'm very much concerned about the pace on which these cases are taking, Chair. I remember last year we talked about the same issue. Governor exonerated himself from the allegations and said that he is not the one to blame, and we agree with that. So that matter was referred to AACC. So now I wonder, Chair, what is happening with the AACC? And you know, Chair, there is okay, no, okay. Chair, now I think the AACC need to tell us the timeline upon which is going to conclude this case, because it has to be concluded. Now you have heard what the governor, the honorable governor, has said, that before the clearance of the former governor to vie for any other seat, maybe you want to vie for the next governor or to complete his term, he has to be cleared by the ES, and I agree with the governor. So it's upon now, you, Chair, now to indulge the EACC to go on record on what time they think that this matter will be concluded once and for all. We don't want it to appear now again in the next financial year as an audit query again. You are giving my governor a very big headache, you know, because he can be referred to, maybe people can end up mistaking him for not doing the right thing or not following up the county funds. That is my my submission, Chair.
And Chair, just on record, he's the only staff who has utilized funds from that particular fund. Nobody else has borrowed. That we are even thinking to answer your next question of unutilized county funds. We want to get rid of that fund and use that money for development.
Yes, you see, you know, really, I don't know what evidence you need. This, there is already evidence that a loan was taken, was not paid. There is an audit query on it. There are letters that have been written to him. Why should you take longer to resolve such a straightforward matter? Do you not?
Chair, I'm not in a position to give the details of that matter, but it's much wider than just the loan. So it's more of abuse of office.
It is containing other things.
Exactly, Chair. However, I am not in a position to give timelines in terms of how long it is going to take, but I know it's in the last stage of just evidence analysis just before forwarding to the ODPP. Thank you, Chair.
So maybe legal, you can advise what options are available to the committee. Do we write to EACC or what do we need to do? Because now this query is now appearing the third time. And if not handled, it will appear the fourth time. And the fourth time is appearing, people will be going into elections. And this person will be vying for the seat of governor. So, legal.
Chair, I think the law is very clear about recovery, and the county should use the mechanisms at hand to attempt to recover the loan. On the other issue that had been identified on the failure to take security, I think that would be an indictment of the county at the time, because usually in practice, when someone is borrowing to finance a certain property, the security is, even here in Parliament, the charge is registered even before the finances are released. So I think there was probably a procedural lapse which the county should take care of in future when they are doing such disbursements.
The loan was taken when he was serving as a governor. So again, he should ensure that the property is charged.
There's also that element of abuse of office.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is we need to write a letter to EACC to get an update of all the matters that we have referred to them, including this one. The clerk, I hope you are getting, to get a status update of all the matters that we have referred to them, including this one for Lamu. And then where necessary, the committee will make a decision to invite EACC to appear before us so that they can tell us what they are doing. We can even meet in camera if they don't want to share the information with the public or is still under investigation. So I think we need to cause a letter to them.
I wanted to know whether they have been interrogated by the EACC.
Asking for a status update, you will give us all the status. And then the...
Just wondering, because this happened during
Mr. Chairman, he had not given prayer authority in writing for pension dues and any other employee benefit to be utilized to clear the debt. So I think when...
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. I think I was the one writing letters to him and reminders.
Yeah.
But casually...
And that hotel, because of that now, they insist that whenever we go there, we have to pay in advance. So is it...
We have no powers to recover. That's why we send that matter to EACC.
Just to attach, Chair.
Indicated that this fund is not viable. If my mind doesn't fail me, if you look at our recommendations, we are under review. No explanation was provided for keeping public funds idle at the expense of delivering services to the public. In the circumstances, the effectiveness of the fund in meeting the intended purposes could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, your response?
Thank you, Chair. The county executive acknowledges the audit observation. During the period under review, the Lamu County Staff Housing Fund Committee did not receive any loan applications from staff members. Consequently, no loan disbursements were made. It is important to note that the fund remains active and the county executive is fully committed to issuing loans to eligible staff upon application. The lack of disbursement was not due to unwillingness or inaction by the fund committee, but rather the absence of applications from potential beneficiaries. And in view of the constant audit queries on this matter, as I had mentioned earlier, we are planning to close this fund and utilize these funds in a more meaningful way.
Yes, now members, you can now bring your discussions. But before that, let me hear from the auditor, the comments on the response.
That issue, Mr. Chairman, still is not resolved. If we find the same scenario, we still visit again.
So maybe, Governor, you can tell us why are people not applying for this loan? Are they too rich, or the terms are not favorable?
The terms are very favorable. Even I'm surprised that I myself did not apply in 2022. But all said and done, and we have drawn the attention of staff of the availability of these funds. But curiously, nobody, I think the history that then they hear somebody borrowed an EACC after him, everybody is afraid.
Yes, you can proceed, Vice Chair.
Chair, the last time we were here, there was an issue of religion that came up in terms of the borrowing. If my mind doesn't fail me, there are people who are not willing to borrow because of interest. And the Governor, you said that, of course, you wouldn't refuse anybody to actually apply because of interest reason. But how are you catering for those who are feeling that they cannot take with riba?
It is true that Muslims generally, they avoid paying interest. And this is why we see partly the reluctance that there are no applicants for these funds. But that is not a bar for any non-Muslim staff who qualifies to apply.
Senator Kamau.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I don't know how I'm going to put this issue so that I may be understood well. Because according to me, I really understand that most of the staffs who are non-Muslims in Lamu County are not privy to the information that they're supposed to get these funds. So I don't know whether Governor Politri can be able to tell us which mode of information did he pass to the non-Muslim community to apply for these funds, or else, generally, what have you done, Governor, to make sure that these non-Muslim staffs of Lamu County government can benefit out of this fund? Because this is a fund that is purposed to benefit the staffs of Lamu County government.
Senator, I think
the loan, maybe
that's a wrong tangent.
That's a clarification, Governor.
That's a wrong tangent you're taking. First, you should understand that this fund is for a particular cadre. It's not for all staff. That's why it's called senior staff. It's a particular cadre who qualify. And all those have been informed, and everybody is aware of the availability of this loan fund.
It is a fund for executives. Yes. What level? The chief officers and above.
Governor, how much money is in the fund currently?
5 million.
And in the year under review, that 5 million was not used. It was not loaned out.
Yes.
And even as we're speaking now, it has not been loaned out at all.
It has not.
How do you feel about that? Because I am sure in Lamu,
what do you want me to feel? I've said people don't.
No, I didn't elect you. It is your people who elected you. So it's not about what I want you to feel.
Right.
It's about what you feel. So
that's why I've said we have decided.
Just a minute, Governor. Just a minute. Let me prosecute my thought process. In Lamu County, if you have got 35 million lying for 12 months, not utilized, and getting into year 2, right now, we are going to the 6th month, so we have be about another 1.5 years not utilized. You don't have any other competing, services that could consume 35 million, quite sincerely. I would perceive, because I was in the committee in finance and budget that received a lot of complaints from Lamu that the money you are given is barely there for any kind of other service delivery apart from just paying salaries. Because Lamu is so small as a county, it was among the 11 counties that we really considered in finance and budget to even fight for more cash to come to you for service delivery and development. Now you have got another 35 million just sitting somewhere waiting for hopefully somebody to be able to get it, you know. Can this 35 million be utilized in other meaningful services to the people of Lamu if it's not being borrowed?
Senator, you were not here when I had commented on that, and seeing that there is no interest from the staff, we have resolved that we are going to terminate the fund, and those funds will be used for development.
Maybe I think this point, honorable members, because looks like EACC is taking long, we could consider the decision that the EACC continues to handle, to chase the former governor who took the loan, but the fund, because he's not serving the purpose, be abolished and that money appropriated elsewhere. Because if we wait for EACC to finish, it means the money will continue being idle in that fund and not serving the purpose. So I think when we retreat to write our report, we need to make a recommendation that will allow the county to utilize the 35 million elsewhere through budget appropriation, and then EACC to continue following up on the case they are dealing with. So that we don't tie up the funds in a fund that is not functional.
Chair, that would mean that perhaps that will happen in the next financial year, by the end of this financial year. But I think that there are instruments that the governor can be able to use. Because this money lying dormant would be appropriate. I think there are channels that the governor, in his estimation, can give us a timeline, so that it is not subject to our recommendation. Our recommendation should be, verbally now as you have done, and of course written now before the report writing. But Governor, in your own estimation, when do you think you can dissolve this fund practically?
We shall do it before the end of this financial year.
Before the end of the financial year.
We have to do a supplementary to appropriate that. We are already in April, so before June, we should have done it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Honorable members, actually that brings us to the end of that report. Unless if there is a member who has any further issue, any further comment, query. Okay. If not, we can have final comments. I will only allow the senator for Lamu to make a comment, and then the governor. Final comments.
Thank you very much. I think I can also comment about the issue of the former governor, right?
Yes.
Chair, I was of an opinion that if this committee can be able to give a direction to the governor, that he recovers the outstanding amount of 6 million plus from his savings, so that at least that money can go into circulation, and maybe give the balance to the governor so that he can be able to sort out his issues. And we finish this business once and for all, because now it's like the EACC is taking a lot of time. So, and we want this money, Chair, to go into circulation. So if it is possible, this committee, if it has some latitude, it can have some latitude to be able to give such a direction, I would be very happy, Chair.
Watch a legal officer comment, Kwanza. Comment on that. Do the counties have powers to deduct that money from gratuity?
They would only have that power if the documents the person signed when they were taking the loan authorized that. For instance, in some institutions you find when you're applying for the staff mortgage or car loan, they indicate there if you are exiting the institution, then any outstanding amount may be recovered from whatever the county is supposed to pay you. So if that is not there, then the county cannot deduct. They have to first follow the debt collection channels, such as going to court for recovery, or maybe the person expressly authorizing that before they recover in that particular way.
So I think it's not easy unless he has given his authority to recover. He will still take you to court if you deduct his gratuity. That's why we looked at all those options. That's why we recommended the EACC to take it up. Governor, your final comments?
Chair, thank you very much. On behalf of myself and the other staff from the county government, we thank you for this opportunity. And I must say, from when we started and now, I'm seeing a lot of good progress as far as our accounts are concerned. Today you considered 4 funds. Out of those 4, 2 are unmodified and 2 are qualified. I must say this is a good improvement. We also appreciate the role of the Senate. You had asked me to come earlier, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, I was not able. But I was always informing you, and I received your letter on Friday to come here this Monday, and here we are. But I also would like, especially now, the whole Senate, please help us with the share payments. Lamu right now is owed 80 million. It's a small county, and that impacts on our services. But otherwise, to all of you, we appreciate the time you have taken to meet with us. And now looking forward to next year's accounts. And I hope that there will be less issues than those raised in the 2024-2025 audit cycle. Asante sana, Chairman, and all the senators.
Okay. Very well.
Chair, I'm just curious.
You want to say something?
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Don't reopen debate. Just
no, it's not debate. It's not debate. Chair, where EACC cannot be able to deal with the former governor, and this fund, the current governor, is determined to close it in the next 2 months. Can't we summon the governor into this committee? I think we have got the powers where it is here, because that's a lot of money, 23 million interest accrued up to now. I mean, Lamu is such a small
county. About 6 million.
6 million, I mean, yeah, but I'm saying accrued interest. Interest.
1.3 million.
Yeah, so that's a lot. Anything is a lot of money for Lamu. Lamu and Viga, you know, one thing that you share with my chair is that your small counties that we are trying to fight for every penny that can get into your account for service. So where the EACC cannot be able to deal with this matter, Chair, why can't we just make a recommendation to summon the governor here? Because we are allowed under Article 125 of the Constitution, and then deal with it before the account is closed.
I think let's look at the efforts the EACC has done. We have said we write to them for them to give us an update. Let's look at the effort they have done, and then if that effort fails, then definitely that can be an option. Yeah. Yeah.
It has failed, sir.
Yeah. Kinoti he thinks otherwise. Kinoti hajashindwa. Wacha wakuja tuambie what they have done. Yeah, we will, and that has to be done urgently. Maybe prioritize that.
Chair, what is the timeline for this EACC report? Because let's just be clear about what we are doing. What is the timeline for EACC to give us this update to make our determination? Can it be the next 1 week, 7 days?
We can invite them to appear before us. We are in recess in April. Immediately after April recess.
Yes.
They appear before us.
On this matter, so the clerk take note.
Yeah. So anyway, let me make my final comments. One, I want to thank you, Governor, for always appearing before us when we need you and being ready to respond to the issues objectively. I think this year we are basically done with you, but we just have one pending issue, which is we'll be visiting Lamu. We'll be doing an inspection visit in Lamu, a date that we are going to communicate. But that is after we are through with this process we are doing. Otherwise, for the SHA, we have taken it upon ourselves that we are going to invite the CS for Health to appear before us on the matter of unpaid SHA remittances to the counties. So, but we are going to handle it globally, all the 47 counties. So that we are already doing something about it on behalf of the counties. So otherwise, thank you very much, and safe journey back home in Lamu. And Ramadan Karim. Thank you very much.